Welcome to our latest Wandering Walks of Wonder tour. Today we're headed to Charleston, South Carolina. Actually, this is the second walk that I've done for Charleston. The first walk, you can find that on my playlist, is more in the French Quarter, which has more of the historic churches, government buildings, and other historic buildings, and more history about Charleston. But this particular walk is going to take us in an area known as South of Broad. Here in just a minute will be along Broad Street, and I'll talk about that as we get closer to it. But this area that we're going to walk through today is more of a historic neighborhood with beautiful homes, such as we see here, with gardens and many other different types of architecture and features that we're going to see on this walk. The first set of buildings that we're seeing here along our walk today is known as Rainbow Row. It's actually probably one of the most picturesque and most photographed set of homes here in Charleston. Rainbow Row is named for a row of 13 colorful historic houses. It's the longest cluster of Georgian row houses in the United States. Most of these homes were built in the mid-18th century. It's called Rainbow Row because of the bright pastel colors that we see that are painted during the restoration process in the 1930s and 1940s. Dating back to 1740, Rainbow Row is situated near the historic waterfront of the city. Today, most of these are 13 to 14 homes are private residents, and as I mentioned, they're the most famous architectural landmarks in Charleston. It's also considered to be the most photographed area of historic Charleston. The next home we're walking past on our tour is the Hayward-Washington House. This house was built in 1722. The townhouse was built in the Georgian-style double house, and it was built by Thomas Hayward Jr., who was one of the 4 South Carolina signers of the Declaration of Independence. The city of Charleston also rented this house for George Washington's use during the president's week-long stay in Charleston in May of 1791, and since then has become known as the Hayward-Washington House. In 1930, the Hayward-Washington House became Charleston's first historic house museum. Inside, you can see an excellent collection of historic Charleston-made furniture, including a Holmes bookcase, which is considered one of the finest examples of American-made colonial furniture. The museum also features the only 1740s kitchen building open to the public, as well as formal gardens featuring plants commonly used in the Low Country in the late 18th century. The Robert Brewton House was built in 1730 and is the oldest dated single house in Charleston. The house stands sideways on the lot, like many that you'll see in this neighborhood south of Broad. It is 3 stories high, and the narrow side is to the street with the entrance at the side. The house is 1 room wide across the street front and 1 room to either side of the hall on all 3 floors. The Robert Brewton House remains much as it was over 250 years ago when it was first built, but has been beautifully restored as much as possible to its 18th century design. Inside are original heart pine floors and cypress wainscoting that preserved intact the exterior building. We're now walking past First Baptist Church. First Baptist Church is the oldest Baptist church in the South and is often referred to as the Mother Church of Southern Baptists. The First Baptist Church was dedicated in 1822 and was designed by Robert Mills. Mr. Mills considered the First Baptist Church to be the best specimen of correct taste in architecture of all the modern buildings in the city, he said at the time. The church itself was founded in 1682 and originally organized in Kittery, Maine. In 1683, the Baptists relocated to South Carolina. The first church meetings were held in the King Street home of William Chapman. In 1699, the present lot that we see here today was donated to the church by William Elliott, and a small frame building was constructed. Today, the First Baptist Church remains an active congregation and is one of more than 1,400 historically significant buildings within the Charleston Old and Historic District. We're now coming up to the Nathaniel Russell House. The Russell House is a historic house that was built by a wealthy shipping merchant, Nathaniel Russell, in about 1808. It is one of the most significant neoclassical houses in the United States. One interesting feature in the house is an elliptical spiral staircase which ascends 3 floors. A visit to the Nathaniel Russell House also gives you a little bit more of an understanding of the wealthy families during the economic boom times of the 19th century. The house has 3 main rooms on each floor with diverse geometric designs: a front rectangular room, a center oval room, and a square room in the back. Also in the back are original slave quarters that were used to accommodate 18 enslaved people who served the Nathaniel Russell House. First Scots Presbyterian Church is the 5th oldest church in Charleston. The building was constructed in 1814. Its design was inspired by St. Mary's Cathedral in Baltimore, Maryland. The First Scots Presbyterian Church has walls that are 3 feet thick and covered with stucco. Twin towers rise above the columned portico. Reflecting the heritage of the congregation, the seal of the Church of Scotland is displayed in the stained glass window over the main entrance, and the decorative wrought iron grills contain thistles, the symbol of Scotland. First Scots replaced the congregation's first church building, which was a frame building previously located in the southeast corner of the graveyard. Inside, the graveyard contains more than 50 stones that date earlier than the 1800s. St. Michael's Episcopal Church is one of the finest colonial American churches in the country and the oldest church in Charleston. The church was built between 1752 and 1761 and resembles 18th century English pattern book of examples widely used throughout the colonies. It is similar in many respects to London's St. Martin in the Fields. Approximately 15 years after its doors opened, St. Michael's became Charleston's focal point of colonial resistance to the British. Contributing to the war effort, the lead roof was melted down for bullets. During the Revolutionary War, the bells were taken to England as a prize of war, but a London merchant purchased and returned them. During the Civil War, they were sent to Columbia, but cracked during a fire in 1865. The metal fragments were salvaged and sent to England to be recast in their original molds and were later hung in the church tower. On our left, we're walking past the old United States Post Office and Courthouse. This building was constructed in 1896. It has a Renaissance Revival style with a lavish interior and is very indicative for elaborate public buildings that were constructed in the late 19th century. Gray granite from Winnsboro, South Carolina was used along with the square corner tower balustrade balconies to create a really palatial and imposing exterior. The post office occupies the first floor and is decorated with carved mahogany woodwork, a marble staircase, brass and ironwork, as well as stone columns. On the second floor, there's a paneled Victorian courtroom. The post office itself is the oldest continually operated post office in the Carolinas. The Cathedral of St. John the Baptist was built in 1854, and it was the first brownstone cathedral in the United States. But it was destroyed in the Charleston fire in December of 1861. It took 45 years of fundraising to begin rebuilding the present cathedral that we see today. The cornerstone for the new cathedral was laid in January 1890, and the church itself was opened and consecrated in 1907. The cathedral was renamed Cathedral of St. John the Baptist and is a magnificent structure that is built on the foundation of the old cathedral. The structure of the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist is Connecticut tool-chiseled brownstone. The cathedral seats 720 people and is noted for its Franz Meyer and Company stained glass windows, as well as hand-painted Stations of the Cross, as well as its neo-Gothic architecture. The spire that we see today was not built at the time that the building was consecrated due to lack of funds during the construction of the cathedral. The church was finally completed in 2010, actually about 110 years after the building itself was consecrated. The cathedral with its new spire is the 7th tallest building in the city of Charleston. The spire is covered in copper lattice and is topped with a 16 by 9 foot gilded copper cross. We've now come to what is called the Battery and White Point Gardens. The Battery is one of the most famous landmarks in the city. This seawall stretches from the lower shores of the peninsula and was formerly used for defensive purposes. Along the city's southern tip is a row of southern-style mansions overlooking Charleston Harbor and was formerly the heart and soul of the city's maritime activity. The Battery itself is famous for its stately antebellum homes that we'll see as we walk just a little bit north here in a couple minutes. White Point Gardens itself is a 5.7-acre garden that stretches along the city's southern tip. Here we get excellent views of Fort Sumter and the Charleston Harbor from the White Point Garden. There are numerous old oak trees and plenty of open spaces to enjoy the paved paths, as well as a gazebo, statues and monuments, cannons, picnic areas, and much more. The Williams Mansion was once known as the Calhoun Mansion when it was first built, but in recent years the name has been changed due to some of the controversies that have surrounded John C. Calhoun and his legacy of white supremacy. The Calhoun Mansion itself is a 24,000 square foot 35-room Italianate mansion built in 1876, and it cost about $200,000 at the time when it was built. It took over 5 years to construct the house. Inside are not only the 35 rooms, but 23 fireplaces. It was once the finest private residence in South Carolina. The grand entrance hall to the mansion is 14 feet high by 14 feet long and 65 feet in length. The house has 14-foot ceilings, ornate plaster and wood moldings, elaborate chandeliers, and a stairwell that reaches to a 75-foot dome ceiling. Inside are also beautiful lights designed by Louis Comfort Tiffany at the turn of the century.
General Robert Anderson and his troop of men were moved from Fort Sumter to Fort Sumter. However, his troop of men was very, very undersupplied. None of those guys supported Bolton. He was much bigger than they and so they were not, prepared with them on team. But they ended up surviving a 48 hours.
I hope you've enjoyed this Wandering Walks of Wonder walking tour here in Charleston, South Carolina, especially this area known as South of Broad. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, make sure to go back and look at the first video that takes us through the French Quarter of Charleston. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you on our next Wandering Walks of Wonder adventure. Take care now. Bye-bye.